are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, especially knowing that we've got more great games to break down today on this Tuesday show. Blake, I don't think people realize how deep this week 3 is. This week 3 might be one of the best week 3s that I've ever seen.
Joe, it's a bloodbath in the SEC, like we said on Sunday. You're going to start figuring out a lot of things. And listen, you got a lot of other games that we didn't talk about. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to Alabama and Wisconsin tomorrow. There's some other games that we still got to mention here. But look, SEC has South Carolina and Vandy, LSU and Florida play. We'll talk about those 2 games today. The ACC's got a big game coming up with Clemson and Georgia Tech. We'll preview that one as well. But, Joe, this week 3 is I'm so mad that it's only Tuesday, to be honest with you. Like, I'm really ready for it to be here. But we'll get some, we're only a couple of days away here, but this week 3 is absolutely massive.
Yeah, and I think that this slate of the 3 games that we're talking about today are they really show that there is a lot of intriguing storylines around college football that maybe aren't directly in front of our faces. Like Georgia Tech, can they start to build some momentum with a banged-up Haynes King? Can Vanderbilt sneak up on South Carolina? Is Pavia and this crew for real, or were they just beating up on a Virginia Tech team that's already out of juice? There is a lot that can change after this week. And I know that you and I always talk about this, and you were the one who put me onto this. Week 3 is that first real inflection point. It's when we start to really understand, okay, these teams are the legit teams. These ones were the pretenders.
Well, it really is the month of September. Like, let me give an example, okay? So let's just say hypothetically, and I'm just saying hypothetically, let's say Florida loses. Now what? Joe, in less than 2 weeks, Alabama goes to Athens. Well, what's Georgia? Georgia's got Tennessee this week, and we're going to find out a little bit more about Georgia. But the real question becomes, is Alabama 2-2 at the end of the month of September? There's so many questions that we get in these first 3 to 4 weeks that are astronomical. I will say this. I don't know. Did you see Chris the Bear Felica's tweet, by the way?
No, I missed it.
Outside of the Big Ten playing the SEC this week, they do not play a P4 opponent this week with their other 16 teams in their conference. They don't play one. So they have 18 teams and 16 games are against G5 opponents or FCS.
What's your point?
My point is we've had more P4 games for the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 in one weekend than the Big Ten has had combined in all 3 weeks.
Yeah, but are we shocked by this?
I'm just saying.
We knew you and I have yelled about this enough during the offseason. We knew coming into the year that their scheduling was soft. Are we going to do this every week that they don't play anyone?
I mean, I didn't bring it. That's not my tweet. I'm just saying. It got 1 million views. What do you want me to say about it? But regardless of that, it will be very interesting. This is, by the way, Alabama's second P4 opponent in 3 weeks out of conference. Before we get rolling here, the AP poll is the topic of conversation. We talked about it yesterday. However, this poor girl, Haley, what's her last name? Haley Sawyer is getting absolutely abused on social media. Now, I'm going to talk about this at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time a little bit in depth. I talked to an AP voter today. The logic is absolutely insane. I do not know, and we do this. As someone who covers a centralized team and someone who tries to cover the sport from a national perspective, I have no idea how you do both. And you got to give your ballot in by Sunday morning. How do you recap all of these games? I have no clue.
Well, so this was part of what I talked about with when we talked about this yesterday. The days are all blending together. I don't even know what year it is anymore. I said this to you when we have the AP poll, and it's been around for a very long time. The biggest flaw that it's had is that you're trying to put together a bunch of opinions nationally when you have all these people that are focused on their specific teams. It's been the biggest thing for me to be able to cover it at the level that I can. That I'm a trusted source. I know this is going to sound like I'm like pumping myself up, but like I'm a trusted go-to person for radio spots around the country to talk nationally because I'm not solely focused on one team.
Right.
I don't know how you and others are able to
go to games.
Well, right.
I can't go to games. I mean,
spend like a whole day rewatching stuff that you missed.
I mean, you've seen the process. If let's just say LSU plays at night, I have a small TV, okay, that is connected. Like let me give an example. Oklahoma and Michigan was on a side TV, but I'm sitting here in the studio with a projector and going back and watching the entire game, Joe, Monday or Sunday morning at 5:30 a.m. By the way, I did a post game until 1:30. So, like, no, it's not easy. But we have to come out here and do something completely different than what others have to do. I just don't get it. I understand she's getting killed. She should have just come out and said I made a mistake. She should.
No. Hold on. Let's hold this person more accountable for what they did than just she should have come out and said she shouldn't have a vote. Her response was, I don't want to get too much into my processor logic. It's really fun, but it doesn't really matter in the end. That's bullshit. I'm not saying that it's life or death that you're giving your vote and you're putting correct analysis. That's not what I'm saying. But it is a privilege to cover football. People are scratching and clawing for the opportunity to have a vote, and you're taking it for granted. And the thing that pisses me off the most, she locked her Twitter account. She locked her Twitter account because of all that. Do you know how many times that I get blasted and you and I get blasted by fan bases because we just simply say that their team's going to lose? It's unbelievably cowardly. You did something wrong, acknowledge you did it wrong, and say that you're going to be better. And then hiding behind a protect account, that's bullshit. Bullshit. She shouldn't work in sports if she doesn't think that she can handle something like this. This is ridiculous, man. I was so pissed off about this today. For the amount of work that you and I put in to try and be relevant, and you've got someone like this that has an AP vote, it sucks.
Speaking of relevancy, 19,000 subs on YouTube. Congratulations, my good friend. On the way to 20K. I agree with you. Let me tell you what the conversation I had with a local AP voter was today.
Okay.
Well, my preseason poll said, and this person brought up, well, should I knock somebody so far down over one loss? And this was their exact quote. I will pull it up. And there's other members in the beat that are in this text thread. And basically it just comes to a point where, well, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. But that doesn't mean that, South Florida beat two ranked opponents that you had in your preseason rankings. Florida State literally beat Alabama and then scored 70. And this is a ranking. It's not a rating. Like, I could come out here and say, look, Oregon's not really played anybody, but I think that they might be better than Ohio State. Like, we can say that. We don't have the vote. Okay? But I can't, if I'm ranking them, I can't put Ohio State anywhere besides one. How can you do that? And look, I've seen people put LSU at one. Why did you do it? Why? Maybe you can have them at two because they went on the road to Clemson. I get it. You can have the debate. Ohio State's the reigning national champion. They beat Texas in week 1. Like, I don't understand some of the logic that goes in these AP votes. And listen, perception does become reality. Ask SMU.
Right.
So people had Boise in their top 10 in week 10 last year.
So wait, you bring up a good point with this too, and you and I were kind of talking about this off air.
The ADs they go based off of an AP poll. The people in the selection committee.
We don't know. We question how much the people in the selection committee are paying attention to these things, and a lot of the times their perception on how they view these teams are from where teams have been discussed on these national rankings. The AP poll influences the decision making of the most important decision makers.
And look, I had Florida in my top 10 power rankings. I was wrong. And I will admit when I'm wrong. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't come back out here and put South Florida behind them.
Right.
That's the difference. So I can be wrong. I mean, a lot of to H Money in the chat, do your top 10 and let's roll with it. If you're gonna come at us, you better do your own. So that's all I'd say. Listen, I hate this situation happened, but can there be a real? By the way, some of these people that have votes, I just do not get it, Joe. I really don't.
Yeah, you got to be able to back up your logic.
I asked one of them today, do you know what a 3-tech is? I didn't get a response. Do you know what a 3 technique is? If you can't respond to that something that small, then you can't. I don't think you deserve to have a vote. It has nothing to do with men, women, black, white, none of that. You got to know the sport. It would be like me or you going to a gymnastics meet and judging gymnastics. I have absolutely no. The only thing that I know is that they jump really high and they try to land on their feet. That's all that I know. I am not the person to ask. So,
by the way, to get to this quick comment from Elks, I'm going to have it done. I'm going to have the Discord set up. I'm midway through finishing setting it up. It's going to be good to go by the end of this week. There will be an update there. We've had a couple more people sign up for memberships, so that will get finalized soon.
Yeah, we'll be finalized soon. It's just really tough during the season, but we're going to get there. All right. Everybody do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, and wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, every episode is brought to you by our good friends right here, right below me, under at FanDuel. Go over to FanDuel.com today. Sign up. Want to do a $1 20 leg parlay like me? You can. If you have the discretionary income, go over there, sign up today. Let's go have some fun. If you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or go to FanDuel.com/RG. Joe, let's get into a couple of these games very quickly. LSU versus Florida in Death Valley, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on ABC. The LSU Tigers are open up at a 9.5-point favorite now at 8.5 on our good friends over at FanDuel. When you look at this game, how do you see it playing out?
Well, this game, obviously, Blake, has serious ramifications for the future of Billy Napier. And I think that that's the most important thing to open this conversation with, is that he's going to give everything his all. I really don't think that Billy Napier is the type of coach that's just going to lie down. And we saw that last year. They were staring down the barrel last year, and they had to bounce back. And they pulled off 2 amazing upsets over LSU and against Ole Miss. And those victories were enough for the whole team to believe, to lock in. So much so that many of us thought that they could be a playoff darling. I think a lot of the conversation comes down to this for this game, is how much can Billy Napier motivate his squad to go back-to-back and beating LSU. There's a lot of intricacies that we talk about with this game, Blake, but the mental state of this team is the priority, because there's a chance, and I'm not saying Florida will do this, but there is a chance that this team could come out completely flat and they could get walked over and it could be over by halftime.
Yes, I was parenting, so stop making fun of it. He heard LSU and he freaked out. All right, let's get to it. So Billy Napier is 20-20. Hold on 1 second, Joe. 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. We just had a little bit of an issue there. When I look at LSU and Florida, Joe, there are a couple of questions that I have. Number one, is Caleb Banks back? I think that is the number one question in this game, because if he is, what is LSU's interior offensive line? Joe, they have not been good. At least they weren't good last week versus when Braylon Moore went down. I'm not trying to report anything here. I think the feeling coming out of Baton Rouge at the current moment is that Braylon Moore might be good to go come Saturday. If that is ultimately the case, I do feel better about that situation. The National Offensive Lineman of the Week, the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week at center. Does Braylon Moore come back? LJ McCray is out for the rest of the season after a surgery with Florida. Joe, last year what happened in this game is that they generated 7 sacks on Garrett Nussmeier. Caleb Banks destroyed LSU, and then he destroyed Ole Miss, and then he destroyed Florida State, and he kept going on. That's why a lot of people like yourself, I think, had Caleb Banks as number 1 interior defensive lineman in the country.
Yep.
When I look at it, that is the game. LSU offensively has been anemic. They don't have an identity, in my opinion, right now. They cannot push the ball down the field like they were. I think Garrett is working through some things. I don't think he's hurt, but I think he's working through some things. With that being said, which offense, though, is going to show up? When Florida lost to South Florida, everybody pointed to, oh, man, they got away from Jaden Ball. They had penalties on touchdowns that got called back. DJ Lagway, even though he's got a 75% completion percentage, he hasn't looked good. The stats are a little bit misleading on what has happened in these first two games. Joe, which offense is not going to be, or is going to be less anemic? Because I don't see the explosives by either one of them. I see Brown, the freshman wide receiver, getting some touches. But, Joe, which defense is going to perform? This, for LSU, does scare me. Because I know you're coming in at Death Valley at night. Billy Napier is fighting for his head coaching life. This team rallied around him against you a year ago. Joe, remember the whole thing? It comes out Billy Napier is going to remain our coach in 2025. They come out and beat LSU. Then they beat Ole Miss. Then they finish the season undefeated. From that point forward, after the Texas loss, you got to go take it to him up front. And Garrett's got to be Garrett. He's got to continue to show that he has growth. I don't think they looked prepared last week against Louisiana Tech at all. And can this LSU offense and this Florida offense find some form of identity? Now, you would say, well, Blake, I feel like I know the identity of Florida. Then what is it? Because jet sweeps, play action, getting DJ Lagway out on the move, getting under pressure is not working for him right now. Are you going to be able to find something, either offense, that you can have success in and win this game?
So there's two things that I think getting into the X's and O's of this and where either side can find success. I wrote down as the most important part with this for how this game transpires in the line of scrimmage. LSU's offensive line is going to get talked about the whole year until the end of the season, or at least until they have a stretch of consistency, that it's a completely new unit, and they're trying to figure out who are the best guys, who they can lean on the most. They had a pretty good game against Clemson, but you just talked about how there's some injury stuff that they're going through.
High take,
You're
I
going
don't
up
think
against
they did. High take, I don't think that they did.
You didn't think they had a good game against Clemson? Clemson,
I don't.
You think, okay. Well, yep. The national perspective was that they were fine.
Correct.
And if we want to be a little bit critical, they could have been better. They now have another challenge. Tyreek Sapp is a phenomenal pass rusher. And it sounds like there's hope that Caleb Banks will be back for this game. And if he is, he could be a game wrecker again like he was last year. I think that for LSU's sake, there's a real chance for them to really attack Florida's secondary. Florida's secondary not only showed inconsistencies, but they also weren't tackling. They gave up a lot of big plays off of broken tackles. You have two very shifty players in Aaron Anderson and Caden Durham at running back. Can those guys break tackles like the South Florida skill players did? On the other side, with Lagway, Blake, I think that one thing that needs to get brought up, as you just said there, that he hasn't been as good as I think everyone has hoped for. We got to remember that he was really banged up in the preseason. So these first two games were supposed to be his preseason games where he's getting into a rhythm. He's trying to figure things out. He can go out there and suck a little bit, and he's just trying to get a feel for what game action is going to be like because he didn't get the full preseason like everybody else did. Problem was that last week it was against a really good G5 team.
Yeah,
and they got caught up. There's a shot, I would say, that we could see a very different version of DJ Lagway. There's a very good chance that he suddenly captures momentum and confidence and starts playing more freely. I think that's something that has to be talked about. We can't just, and I'm not saying you were doing this, but we can't just lean on the fact that he's been shaky because there's a reason for it. He has not had the same amount of time to get ready for the start of the season like a normal quarterback does.
But he should know not to throw across his body in a critical situation and throw a pick. That's not
I know. I get if we're getting very specific. Sure, there were instances where
right.
Yeah.
But he's done it multiple times. And that's the thing, Joe, that I look at and say, okay, I could get behind what you're saying if it's not boneheaded decisions. Like you got to know not to throw across your body, across field in a critical situation. I digress. I agree with pretty much everything you said, other than just some boneheaded decisions he's made. What can you do versus this LSU defense? And Joe, the counter question to that, is this LSU defense for real? Because, Joe, they're only giving up 8 points a game. The only reason they gave up a touchdown last week was because they put in their entire second string and there was a blown coverage. Corner came on a blitz. He wasn't supposed to. Safety's not there. Bang, touchdown. They had another game where they forced 7 3-and-outs. They had another game where damn near the opponent didn't get across the 50-yard line. Defensively, they've been fine. The question I ask is, you got tested versus Clemson, who didn't have a run game. You didn't get tested versus Louisiana Tech, who still doesn't have a run game. This is going to be a physical war, an outright war up front. They're coming in here to punch you in the mouth. I'm really interested to see how LSU attacks and reacts to a physical rushing attack. But, Joe, I really do think that LSU is going to man up on the outside and say early, DJ, go beat us. Like, go beat us, because if you can, then we'll adjust. They're going to send pressure after him. If they're sending it after Klubnik, they're going to send it after you. Can DJ stand in there and make the big throws will be a big thing for them. But, Joe, I also got to question Napier on some of these decisions. Mm-hmm. Can Blake Baker find a way to get into his head the way that I thought Golish and staff did last week? Why did you go away from Ball? Ball had 50 or 45 yards in that opening drive. 45. He had 90, I think 94 total. Why did you go away from him? And then you're asking him to run on critical downs like 3rd and short. Of course they know you're running the football. I think that this game is so intriguing because Billy's fighting for his head coaching life. And this is a dangerous spot for them to be in. What I would tell you is I don't think LSU is overlooking them. I think they want a little bit of revenge after what happened a season ago. I got to flip it on the other side of the quarterback, though. Garrett has got to play better. I thought he was fine. I mean, he did some really good things against Clemson, but he turned around against Louisiana Tech and kind of laid an egg a little bit. Joy, again, the lack of offensive identity for LSU concerns me a little bit. I don't get what they're trying to do. Let me give an example. They're running counter weak against non-numbers. So, like, we come in here and say, well, there's an offensive line issue. Okay, well, let's break that down very quickly. You don't have the numbers and you're running the ball to the left side of the formation. Why? They're going to make Louisiana Tech, if they have an extra number and an extra hat, they're going to get to you. I think that Alex Atkins, the offensive coordinator from Florida State, who's now the tight ends coach, I think he's going to have a little bit more involved in this run game. I think that they're going to throw some things at Florida that they did not see against Clemson and that they did not see against Louisiana Tech. I think in the second half, Brian Kelly even addressed this. They went way conservative. Let's get out of here. Let's score this last touchdown and get out of here. I think this one's going to be low scoring, which probably means that 90 points is going to get scored. But I think both defenses are really good. That Florida front seven is really good. This LSU front seven is really good. Does Death Valley at night give LSU the edge here and for them to hold on? Might be a big point in this game.
I like the notion that you think this is going to be low scoring on FanDuel.
I do.
Over-under is at 48.5. And I think that's under. Right. We've had defenses on both sides step up so far. The one thing I want to return to that you just brought up.
Garrett?
No. Napier. I think that it's the most important talking point with all this because of what they're dealing with and what they need to do in order to save their season, for him to save his job. And we already have evidence, as you discussed, of him rallying the team when they needed to. He very well could have been fired, should have been fired last year after the start that they had. I can't start slow again. They can't. They lose this game. There's a chance that they've got one win in September. This is one of their easier games technically, but it's really not against LSU because of the insane stretch they have coming up, because all of them are hard. I think that if coming into this game, Blake, if the upset didn't happen last week, I might actually consider.
Don't do it.
No, wait.
LSU.
I would have easily picked LSU. I would have not even hesitated. I would have been like, I still think that LSU wins against this Florida team because they're at home. It's at night. It's in Baton Rouge. But I have to include why it's not a foregone conclusion because of the fact that they're fighting for their lives. You never want to go up against a coach who's backed in the corner. You don't. And he's shown an ability to work his way out of it. That could be the biggest swinging point is this a rallying point for the team where they turn their year around really quickly, or does this just end up being a sinking point?
Great question. It's a great question. Look, I think both sides have very big things that they're trying to accomplish here. Let's just say hypothetically LSU wins, they're 3-0. They got Southeastern, my alma mater, next week. Joe, I mean, they want to get out of the month of September undefeated because then you look at a situation and say, hey, we have 8 games left. We ain't going 4-4. I mean, at worst case scenario, we're losing 3 of them. Best, what we're shooting for is to at least get to 10-2 and make a playoff. Like, that is your ultimate goal here. We want to get to the playoffs. Sounds good. You got to get out of the month. This is a massive game for both sides for a lot of different reasons. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it again. Does 88 play? If 88 plays, I'm terrified because I don't know unless you get the ball out of Garrett's hands quickly. The only thing that I would assume that LSU would do, and I'm not really guessing on this, try to get them gassed early and try to get Caleb Banks on the sidelines and get him gassed and then start taking your shots because he's not going to be, from a condition standpoint, he's not going to be ready to go from that vantage point.
Yeah. Take
advantage of it early and hit it late, and let's see what happens. All right. South Carolina versus Vanderbilt, a team that actually in only a short window of 2 weeks, Joe, has the same common opponent of Virginia Tech. South Carolina coming into this game after 2 really good wins. Vanderbilt beating Virginia Tech last week, as we just talked about. Joe, when you look at this game, how do you see it going down?
As you just mentioned there, these teams have a common opponent, which is almost unheard of 2 weeks into a season. We almost never get the situation where we can go, hey, both these teams played the same squad, and one of them kicked the crap out of that team, and the other had a little bit on the road, and the other had a little bit of shakiness, a lot of inconsistency, some offensive line problems. We're talking about Vandy doing the ass whooping in week 2, and we're talking about South Carolina having some offensive issues in week 1 when they face Virginia Tech. I think, Blake, for me, we need to remind ourselves of something very, very important, because I keep seeing this happening and these conversations being brought up for those that are being critical of South Carolina. They're trying to say that, oh, this team does not look as good as everyone thought, and they're overrated, that they're not as explosive as that they thought that everyone thought that they were going to be. Might I remind everyone that last year, 2 weeks into the season, we thought that South Carolina stunk. I was one of those people. I stupidly, blindly thought that South Carolina was not going to pick up any speed. I thought that they were going to be a mess. I thought their offensive line was going to be such a liability that they wouldn't be able to move the ball. And then they went on to have one of the best seasons out of anybody in the country. They had the best run out of anybody in the country, the string of wins that they put together to go 9-3. I'm bringing this up to say, Blake, I don't think the first 2 weeks are the sample size that we can use to show what this team is. I think there's things they can draw from it. But before Vanderbilt fans come in the comments of this segment when we post it and saying, we're gonna kick their ass, we beat up on Virginia Tech so much more, we storm back in the second half.
Don't work, man.
It doesn't work, and I think we need to look back at history instead of just looking back at the transitive property.
Vanderbilt was down 20-10 at half. What people have done for this game that aren't Vanderbilt fans, and Vanderbilt fans will know this, drones ran all over them in the first half. Pry and company got away from it. Joe, they were whipping Vanderbilt's outright ass with 2 plays, zone read and inside veer. Drones was going off in the first half. Shane Beamer is not going away from running Lanorris Sellers. It's not going to happen. You could be up 21. It's not going to happen. Ask Alabama. that same exact question. Can South Carolina perfect what Virginia Tech showed that might be a weakness? Go look at the stats. You can look at the stats all you want to. Not you, but you can look at the stats all you want to. Go watch that first half. Drones ran all over them. The sack yardage at the end really hurt it. They know that they got run all over. This is not the opponent to have issues in basic zone read and veer concepts. Now, here's the counter argument to that. Did they expect it to come the way that it did? That's what she said. Did they expect for it to be a situation where Drones was going to do a lot of zone reads and inside veer stuff? Maybe not. We are massive Clark Lee fans on this show. At least I am. And I'm pretty sure you are too. You were? Why not anymore?
Not in Notre Dame anymore.
Oh, okay. Does Clark Lee get this defense fixed with that? Again, why are they down 20-10? I understand the Pavia turnover in the first half. I get all of that. Joe, the truth of it is Drones ran all over them, and I just don't know if Lanorris Sellers is a person that you need to have issues in the QB power, QB veer, QB read run game.
I think another thing, too, to draw some negatives for Vanderbilt and then some positives. Vanderbilt has had two turnovers in their first three drives against Virginia Tech. They also had 11 penalties for 77 yards, and a couple of them didn't count because Brent Pry declined them. So they had a sloppy game, hence why the game went the way that it did, where they were in a giant hole and they had to climb themselves out of it. I think that some of those issues could end up catching up to them in this game. If they turn the ball over, South Carolina, we see it all the time, this team. If you make a mistake on special teams, you make a mistake protecting the football against South Carolina, they take advantage of it. And South Carolina defensively, too, we got to give recognition here. They've only allowed one touchdown this season. One. Yeah. I know that one of those games was against South Carolina State, but still, that is pretty notable. The one thing that I would like to pitch for Vanderbilt and for what they're doing well that they deserve credit for, their offensive line is really underrated. I think their front seven is also really underrated on defense, but their offensive line didn't allow any sacks to Virginia Tech. And that Virginia Tech defensive front is good. That same front has allowed 6 sacks. That same front was able to produce and hit home on Lanorris Sellers in the Virginia Tech game. And then also through this span in that game against Virginia Tech, they had 37 carries for 262 yards and 7.1 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. That offensive line is one of the better ones in the SEC.
So, to your point, they ran for 262 on Virginia Tech. And I do think that they present their own issues. Diego Pavia, that running back room. Joe, what would you consider their offense? A spread version of the triple option to some extent? Yeah. I mean, that's how I guess you could clarify it. But Pavia and Stowers the connection looked really good a week ago. Based off of, too, they just ran the ball. Here's what I would counteract to that. If South Carolina can slow them down and contain and go all out in the run game, I wonder what there were times and moments that I felt like Pavia, when asked to throw, made bad decisions. Has he fixed that part of his game? Will South Carolina, to start off, put more numbers in the box? The part about Vandy, though, is, Joe, you ran on 262 against the same opponent. Now, week 1 versus week 2 is a completely different thing. And we need to understand teams get better after that second game. I don't disagree with you, though. I think they can run the ball. They got some speed at running back, brother. If you do not contain them, they're off. Vanderbilt is so interesting to me. Dude, they are so physical on both lines of scrimmage. They were physical last year. Joe, think about this. They were top 35 Vanderbilt. Top 35 in the country in stopping the run a season ago. That's the biggest difference with Vandy. It's not Diego Pavia. It's not the chains. It's not his brothers and all the chaos that they're doing at their games and none of that. They are more physical on both lines of scrimmage, and that's why they're knocking off some of these teams and dominating a team like Virginia Tech. Joe, I just don't know. I got to circle back to this. I just don't know. What does worry me, if drones can get moving, can Sellers? Because, again, like, once Lanorris Sellers, like, we say all these things, but I just keep coming back to, I think he might be the best player in the country. Like, I really do. So
and then you got Dylan Stewart, who's potentially the best defensive player in the country on the other side of the ball.
I know. And look, I think that they're Joe, I can't believe I'm going to say it. I think they hit it safety again. I can't believe I really do. Kilgore, that unit, I think they've hit again. So we'll see. Vandy has got to play Vandy football and make South Carolina make mistakes. Keep Lanorris off the field.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation with Judge Collier's injury is, but I think having him on the field is obviously important, just having another guy. I think to that point, by the way, because Eli Stowers has been such an important part of this offense, and we're starting to see so far Cedric Alexander be like a really stout weapon in the run game. The secondary that South Carolina presents with the experience they have, the tackling ability that they have, that is a unit that you need to slow down an offense that is this creative. And it's a reason why when they last played, that they played so well, and this was one of the more lopsided games for Vanderbilt last season. One thing I got to bring up here, and I agree with everything you're saying about Lanorris Sellers in South Carolina, and this is where I kind of crossed my wires that I was trying to bring up earlier. I misread one of my notes. I think that we need to see in this game a lot more from the offensive line. And I feel like we talk about this every single week with South Carolina since last year. They have to step up to the plate. Otherwise, this game ends up getting a lot dicier than it should. Through the first two games, they're only averaging 3.3 yards per carry, and they've allowed 6 sacks. Now, I'm sure that yards per carry goes up if it's adjusted to not have sacks included, but 6 sacks is a lot to have on your quarterback who's known for breaking sacks. I don't have it tallied, and I didn't go back and watch every ounce of film to know how many sacks is Lanorris Sellers broken, but I'd bet that number would be higher knowing how good he is at evading pressure. If they give him a clean pocket, man, this team could be so freaking good. I don't know what the fix is, but the offensive line play is the one area that Vanderbilt can try to take advantage of.
If there's a worry for me, it's receiver, but I don't know if they have anybody that can cover in a straight line. Nick Harbor. The thing about when I watched their game versus South Carolina State, for me, what I'm going to limit, I'm going to try to be careful here because I don't want to put Sellers and what I think that they're doing in a box through just 2 weeks. Have you noticed how the teams have been just sending outside pressure and then just containing in the interior? They're trying to box him in. I mean, look, Virginia, go back to the safety. Go back to all the different situations. They've tried to box him in and say, all right, listen, we do not care. We are not – either you're going to have to break a tackle from a defensive tackle or you're legitimately going to have to sit here in the pocket and throw the football to beat us. Until he starts being more consistent at throwing the football, then teams will back off. I'll take this quote, and I wrote this down. I talked to Jay Daniels, Jaden's dad, a lot about this. And he was like, Blake, the pressure stopped coming, and this is like 2 months ago. The pressure stopped coming when Jaden was able to start picking everybody apart down by down, snap by snap. Sellers has got to hit some quick throws early in this one. Has to. Because I think Vandy and Clark Lee being as smart as he is, he's going to take with the two teams, SC State and what Virginia Tech did against him, and try to use the same kind of things with his own wrinkle. Joe, if he can't start beating teams in the pocket, we're going to really see how good he is as a passer, because that's what they're doing to him right now. They're keeping him in a prism, saying, hey, you're going to only beat us from here. It hasn't worked, and I don't know if he has a receiver core that's going to be able to help him and elevate him where they're trying to game plan only against him, if that makes sense.
And I think we're really early on in the season too. So like
Very true.
We haven't really given him time to hit his rhythm. And the same thing kind of happened last year, as I brought up at the beginning of this segment, where it was a shaky couple of games, and then once he caught his confidence was when he started to really take off. Maybe this is the game. Maybe this is the game, because he's a gamer. He's the true definition of a gamer, where you could see him playing and then the feel for the game and how he's starting to build confidence in himself because he makes one big play after another. He gets more and more dangerous. It's almost like a video game character that's like building up, building towards a power up. That's what Lanorris Sellers almost plays like, where he hits his stride because he's accumulated so many highlight plays in one game. It makes him feel unstoppable. He hasn't really had those moments just yet as a passer this season. And it also kind of comes on the shoulders of the inconsistencies from his receivers. Nick Harbor's looked better, but it still leaves a lot to be desired of, can he be DK Metcalf? Can he be that guy that's just so much bigger and physically imposing than everybody else that he's such a problem to deal with over the top? I think that we saw glimpses of it, and they need to keep going back to that in this game against Vanderbilt.
I agree with that. And listen, what's the perception of Nick Harbor, who, by the way, I know last week for him is not necessarily the one that he probably wants to remember. I don't remember him having a catch. I don't even know if he played. I don't remember him being any form of a factor. It was Jacobs and I think Murphy who were getting the receptions. In that, I would just say this. What is our perception of him coming out of week one if the second touchdown up is upheld the right way? But just newsflash, you do know that he would be third in the country, even after having a game with no catches and 0 yards. He'd be third in the country in receiving yards.
That's insane if that's true.
That's insane. No, Joe, he would have over 200 yards. He would be well over 250 if the 2 catches that he had against Virginia Tech are upheld. The touchdown and the long one on the sideline.
How did he not? Is he hurt?
I don't know.
This is, by the way, like just to peel back the curtain. This is always the hardest thing when we're doing these previews. Injury. Well, but it's like it's so hard to we'll do a preview, we'll do an hour's worth of notes, and then you find out that some kid that's important for the team. No, I don't see anything about him being hurt.
I didn't see him at all. We'll have to ask. Maybe we'll just have to.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, there's no headlines that suggest that he's hurt. That is really odd. Maybe
we'll see.
I don't know.
Again, to the initial question, what would it have been? Oh shit, Nick Harbor. He quit.
He's finally here. He's finally.
We're fighting whether he's healthy or not healthy. It would have been the perception coming out of week one, regardless of what happened there. So we'll see. All right. Joe, last game we're wrapping up with and talking about here is the Clemson Tigers versus the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Joseph, everybody's thinking now with the healthy Haynes King, here comes Brent Key and the Yellow Jackets. Why do I feel like everybody needs to pump the brakes a little bit on Clemson?
I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm a blind Clemson believer this season. I'm all the way head first in. So this is what I want to bring up. By the way, this game is Clemson's a 3.5-point favorite on the road against Georgia Tech. Plain and simple, my biggest talking point for this and the biggest swinging point is how healthy really is Haynes King. Doesn't play last week, and Brent Key talked about how they wanted to be careful because they didn't want it to be some sort of a nagging issue that started to build up, which is the smart thing to do. You're playing an FCS opponent. You're playing Gardner Webb. Just start a backup. Having backup experience is important for this team. I think, though, his health, we're going to find out really quickly, but his health is so important because if he's at full strength, he carries this offense. Mm-hmm. He opens up the run game. Him and Jamal Haynes, which I've talked about so many times, are such a dynamic duo. They're insanely productive. But I feel like when he's been banged up and there's been a little bit of a restriction on how aggressive they can be running the football, it catches up to him. And we also saw, Blake, in their first game, some of the issues that came from that when he got banged up. They only had 10 turnovers last year. He had 3 in one game against Colorado. We don't know when he got like truly hurt in that game. I don't know if it was something earlier on in the game, but it feels like there are issues that come with this team, and they're going to be obvious when you don't have your starting quarterback, when he is not playing at full strength.
I'm really interested to see what this team looks like without him, like meaning next year. Because without him, you have been moderately mediocre. Joe, I feel like Brent Key is the better generic version of what Les Miles did to you. Now, he's just not at LSU and doesn't have the caliber of the athlete. You know exactly, if you're Clemson, Haynes King or no Haynes King, you know exactly what they're going to do to you. And there might be a situation where there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. This is the funnest team to me in the country to watch. And I mean that because it is old school. It is in your face. We are going to play our style, and we don't care what you do. Joe, when's this Clemson defensive line going to stand up? When's TJ Parker? When's Peter Woods? When are they Wood-ass, Sammy Brown, and that front set? When are they going to step up? Because you've had multiple games where I think you were the better unit. Like, I thought they were better than LSU's offensive line. But you weren't able to make the more dynamic plays when you needed to. It's why LSU had the ball for 20 minutes in the second half. You allowed them to control and dictate and dominate that second half against you. When are you going to step up? Secondly, this game, I feel like, Joe, is going to go one of two ways. Either you and I are tweeting back and forth at one another saying, Georgia Tech is playing Georgia Tech football, and they're dominating 5 yards in a cloud of dust here, and they keep moving those sticks. Or finally that Clemson offense finds their stride and they're able to move the football. Joe, I am starting to become a little bit worried about this Clemson offense. I'm not there yet, but they can't run the football. And when you have a team that can't generate yards in the run game versus a team that wants to play ball control, defense, and can run it right at you and will run the ball 3 times for 3.5 yards and say, we're just going to hold on to the football and there's nothing you can do about it. Man, what a test for Clemson, because I think Georgia Tech can do that against anybody. Joe, they did it against Georgia last year. It's the same core of dudes. It's the same core. They can generate so many difficult things for you to overcome that, man, if Clemson's going to do what they want to do and show the country, hey, we're here, that defensive line has got to get moving.
I also think, too, like, we got to see a more dominant performance from the run game. I know that Adam Randall had 112 yards against Troy, but the way that they played against LSU
in the second half, by the way.
Yeah. The way that they played against LSU was very concerning. I also think the bigger part for me, I need more explosiveness from this receiving group. And I know that Antonio Williams is a little banged up. It looks like that Dabo said that he's day-to-day. Bryant Wesco had a good game against Troy. But when are we going to start to see this receiving trio of, Wesco and Antonio Williams and TJ Moore? When are we going to start seeing those guys really play to the potential that we thought that they had this season? We really thought that outside of Williams, who had a great year last year, that the young guys, Moore and Wesco, were going to start to emerge. And we got a big game from Wesco last week. I feel like that's what's been hindering Cade Klubnik. I know a lot of people want to point and say, like, Cade Klubnik's not ready. He's just he's not as good as everyone thought that he was. I'm holding out faith that this kid is going to get better. I really think that this kid has a lot of potential, and he showed it last year. There's nothing different from last year to this year. I think that this provides him with a chance to, again, catch that rhythm, catch a little bit of a stride, to build some confidence, and for the whole unit to play better together. But they have to this game. Otherwise, if you get into a rock fight and you get into a spot where you're trying out physical Georgia Tech, you're going to lose. You're not going to win.
I get what you're saying, but Joe, the interception last week and the week before were horrible. It's like it. Here's what I feel like saying here. and this isn't to defend Garrett as an example. Garrett has situations that he makes bad throws and gets punished for them. Klubnik or these other quarterbacks have really bad interceptions like the one against Troy Blake. It was raining. And what's your point? Like, Joe, I just feel, though, that some of this is that he's missing really bad. Like, his misses are bad. When he's on, he's on. Joe, let me ask you, I think he's got to get moving a little bit more. I think you got to get him in a rhythm early because every time when we saw him against Texas, what did they do? Joe, they did nothing dynamic. What was the first? We all remember this. Clemson fans, you remember this. What was the first score? It was off a drag route. Joe, they kept trying to open things up versus LSU, and LSU just went man covered and said, thanks. Thank you. Like, we were more worried about your mess concepts. I had an LSU coach told me, literally the Sunday after the game, I cannot believe that they tried to push the ball down the field on us. Was shocked. Get back to who you were at the end of the year last year. Get these playmakers the ball in space and stop trying to be fancy and get the ball down the field. Just play the game that you were playing at the end of last year.
I also think on the Georgia Tech side of things, by the way, and I think it's fair. I still hold faith that I still hold faith that Klubnik has something there. He's shown tremendous play. There is no blind projection with him. The way that he has played in some of the biggest games is a version of a quarterback that can be in the Heisman conversation. He's kind of already played himself out of the mix. It's kind of hard to make up for 2 shitty first weeks. But for the Georgia Tech side of things, we saw a lot of the speedy, shifty receivers for LSU create for themselves in space. We also saw Cade Durham have a fantastic game. I think that this is an opportunity for, one, Jamal Haynes to pop off. I think that Jamal Haynes is going to be able to break free. I think that he's going to be able to have a number of big games like Cade Durham did. And then you've got some of the shiftier receivers in college football with Eric Rivers and Isaiah Canyon. There's a chance to catch both of those guys having tremendous production because they're dealing with a secondary for Clemson that was quite shaky in their first big matchup.
Well, the interception was bad, right? Like the in the end zone, I'm with you there. To go like after that, he was pretty clean. Joe, I'm going to need this defensive line to step, this front seven for Clemson to step up though, because they're coming right after you. And Joe, I want to lean Clemson in this one, but Georgia Tech will just take it to anybody, and they do not care at all who you are. So we'll see. All right, before we wrap it up here, anything on this Colorado quarterback situation that's happening? Who are they going to start? Who are they going to play? I know Dion today said that we haven't made a decision, but you had some pretty big reports that came out that said that they did.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time believing that they're like completely committed to. I think it's Staub is the pronunciation for him. Goes to show how little we knew about the kid. So much so that the kid didn't even think he was ever going to get a chance to play at Colorado. I was reading his. Week. Yeah, I kind of feel as though that this feels reactionary. I didn't think Caden Salter was perfect in week 1, but I don't think that moving on this quickly after 2 games is the answer. Now, I understand that they were, the game was 10-7 against Delaware, and they looked pretty sleepy. He comes in the game, and then out of nowhere, they start popping off, and they start ripping apart the Delaware secondary. For what Pat Shermer likes to run, Staub's probably the better fit. He is going to be a lot more consistent and accurate, but he's not nearly the same level of athlete as Salter. But Blake, Colorado's success this year hinges on their run game getting better. And we've talked about this. The run game gets better when Salter's involved in it. And they showed it in spurts against Georgia Tech, and then they kind of, didn't really stick to it. I don't know, man. I don't like this. I don't know if I can get behind this. I think if they end up starting him, it's really reactionary to do it after him playing a half and getting very limited playing time from from Salter. I don't think Juju's ready. I really think that there's really no reason to conclude him in the conversation. But I don't want to bail on Salter this early.
All right. They won the game 31-7. I understand that Staub came in and went 7 of 8 for 157 and 2 touchdowns. The question, though, is that I ask, and Salter wasn't bad. Joey went 13 of 16 for 102 yards. Like, he wasn't bad at all. He ran for a touchdown. Juju didn't look ready. Goes 2 for 4, 8 yards, just didn't look ready. Whatever. What is Deion doing? What is going on? I get the philosophy and thought. And listen, if this kid can push the ball down the field, I get playing him. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think both of them are going to see playing time. I really do. As much as I think it's crazy, I think that's what's going to happen here. But Joe, if this kid comes out here and starts pushing the ball down the field again, listen, as high as we were on Cade and Salter, I mean, Joe, this wasn't like give me throws. This wasn't like, oh, lollipop here and somebody takes off. This is him pushing the ball down the field. Like, all right.
Okay, but how, this is my issue with this though, is like, how can you really feel confident that this is the best option to go to?
Well, let me just give an example. They play Houston this weekend. Let's say that midway through the second quarter, they can't get a drive generated. Why not?
Well, but I would start Salter and then turn.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's
the seesawing is a problem. Like that is what I can't get behind.
Oh, I agree. Why didn't you seesaw quarterbacks when you were getting your doors blown off by Oregon?
Well, because
no,
they didn't have who even was the backup quarterback when Shedeur was there.
I don't know.
I don't even remember.
You didn't know this kid. You opened up the segment saying I didn't even know who this kid was.
But that's okay. That's kind of my point here, is that this is Blake. I don't think that this is. I think that they need to stick with Salter. I don't think that he was that bad against Georgia Tech. I don't think that he's really bad enough that they need to bail on him. No. You're mishearing what I'm saying. I don't disagree with you. Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying, if this kid pushes the ball down the field, Deion and them going to go to him. They're going to go to him. I'm telling you.
We'll see if it works.
I don't know if it will. We'll see. What we will see is y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night. Did we have any super chats? No, we didn't. No, we did not. All right. See y'all tomorrow. Good night. Peace.